Hey gamers, hope you had a happy Easter and hope you're all staying safe out there. This is Maniac. And under normal circumstances, I'd be coming at you guys with some cool personal story. And I don't really have something like that today. This is a plea. And I don't normally do pleas on this website for many reasons. I mean, what have I got to complain about, basically? And this isn't a complaint. So I feel like we're okay, at least. But I feel like this should be talked about a bit more because nobody talks about this, nobody remembers it, and I'm pretty certain it can be done pretty easily. If I'm wrong, post a comment, but I guarantee you this can be done easily. There was a man named Steve Jobs, may he rest in peace. There was another man named Bill Gates, forever may he reign. These two men worked together, worked against each other, worked together, worked against each other, and we all know the rest. Let's be honest. This is the story of Microsoft and Apple. It has been a fascination of people for decades now. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of people don't acknowledge this, but the truth is that the most profitable company in the world, the most successful companies in the world, are not oil companies or energy companies. They're tech companies. At one point, Microsoft was the biggest company in the world, was the most successful company in the world. Now I think Apple is the most successful company in the world. And it might have actually had that title before Microsoft took it from them. So they've been fighting for it ever since. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes Microsoft releases something good. Sometimes they release something bad. Same thing with Apple. More often, more recently, Microsoft's been releasing stuff that's bad, and I'm talking about Windows. Usually, people have been starting to dread recent Windows 10 updates. And what is it going to break this week, basically? How long am I going to be down for, and then when is it going to break? And Apple more recently has been releasing hits. The new iPhone's pretty fast. The new iPad is pretty fast. I love the M1 MacBooks and Mac systems. Fixing them is not easy, but like I said, there's give and take. Where did this all start? How did this all start? I know that a lot of people were saying, why wasn't there a Steve Jobs movie when Steve Jobs passed? Okay. I know you read the subject matter on this one. I'm going to just tell you this right now. There was a Steve Jobs movie. It was called Pirates of Silicon Valley. It was made in 1999, and it was released on the TNT network. It starred Noah Wyle as Steve Jobs, Anthony Michael Hall as Bill Gates, and the guy who was the voice of Bender on Futurama, in a very rare live-action appearance, John DiMaggio as Steve Ballmer. And of course, guys like Paul Allen and stuff like that, of course, all show up. And Steve Wozniak, the Woz show. So it's like you expect these people to be in this movie, or at least as characters in this movie. And they are. And it doesn't focus on Jobs. It doesn't focus on Gates. It just simply tells the story of what happened for them. Basically from the incorporation of Apple, or at the very least the start of what sparked Apple, through Apple's Apple line of computers, Microsoft, their start, how what happened when Paul Allen and Steve Ballmer and Bill Gates got together in Harvard. That's where that starts for them. Tells the story about where they started working on BASIC and everything, for what purpose. How Apple and Microsoft worked together for a little bit. Obviously, BASIC was available on the Apple II computers. And what happened through that. Obviously, a lot of it's glossed over because it's a feature film. And I consider this a feature film. It was a made-for-TV movie, but it has the high quality of a feature film. And nobody remembers it. TNT was proud of this movie. They aired it on the night it was available. They aired it and then they re-aired it. They had a trailer with the film with the song "Everybody Wants to Rule the World" on it. If you actually look up the trailer for the movie, you'll actually find that trailer. They had a professionally made trailer for it. It got a DVD release, which was rare for made-for-TV movies, even back then, but it was like the perfect time to do that because it was 1999. DVDs were selling like crazy. Any type of content, whether it be television or movie or whatever, if they thought it could sell, they'd stick it on a DVD and they'd sell it. And yet nobody remembers this movie. Unless you can track down a copy of the movie on DVD, you can't watch it. It's not on Amazon Prime. It's not on Netflix. I don't think it's on Hulu. It's not on HBO Max. You do a search for it online, maybe you might find a digital buy or rent version of it, maybe if you're lucky. It's not available on like TNT on demand or something. It was never available. I mean, this predated that. I mean, TNT on demand I don't think was even a thing until around 2005 or so, give or take. All these movies are seeing heavy success because of the incorporation in catalogs of streaming services right now. Nobody wants to buy DVDs anymore or Blu-rays or whatever. But everybody wants to see movies on streaming. The movie ends around the year 2000, right when Steve Jobs is about to come back to Apple. I don't want to spoil the movie. This is not about telling the plot line of the movie. So the movie does have a beginning and it does have an end. It ends when the movie came out, which was around the year 1999-2000. It ends just as Steve Jobs is coming back to Apple. And it's actually brought down as like a bad thing. Like, it's actually left like, how is Steve going to turn this around? Is he going to turn it around? Because the way the movie ends, this ended just before the iPod was a thing. And just as they're about to like launch, or just before they were about to launch like the G3 line of computers and the iBook of computers, basically. And so the movie is actually Jobs is back, but everyone is booing him. Like, everybody thinks that Microsoft is going to win, that basically Bill Gates is sitting on top of the world as the movie ends. And that's how it ends. And I know for a fact, because I've seen it in interviews actually, yeah, if you wanted it, that's a bad spot to end, yes. But there's nothing stopping them from making a sequel. In fact, Noah Wyle said in interviews he would make a sequel. Like, again, the movie cut off in the year 2000. That's when it released. There's been 20 years since the year 2000. You can tell the story of Steve Jobs' return, about Microsoft and what they had done. Honestly, I would probably say that Apple, what Jobs had done was probably more interesting. Although, ironically enough, out of all the movies that were made, and this is what I think is the reason why I'm making this plea. Out of all of the movies that were produced after the death of Steve Jobs, they were disgraces. I remember seeing several interviews about that kind of stuff where Wozniak was not happy with how the films depicted. And I won't go into specifics because that alone turned me off from even wanting to watch them. And like I said, I had already seen the proper Steve Jobs movie. It's Pirates of Silicon Valley. So, and by the way, Wozniak actually was like, well, yeah, they glossed over a couple of things, but yeah, that's me. That's pretty much what they showed. That's it. Yeah, a little condensed, of course, he said. But the guy who played me did a good job. And I remember even I think Jobs was a little flustered by the I think that because of course Jobs in the movie is not a perfect man. He's not a god or anything like that. Nor I don't think that the real Steve Jobs was a god or anything like that. He was a man. He was a person. He was a human being. And he had some great ideas, but also he had passions. And also the guy made, let's be honest, he had a temper. And that's depicted in Pirates of Silicon Valley. And I think that might have been why Steve Jobs didn't totally get behind it, because the movie kind of showed him as having a temper and he, a couple of other things I won't go into. Again, you'll have to see the movie. But he did compliment Noah Wile's performance, as he should. And there's a clip online of him of Noah Wyle attending Macworld as a joke, pretending he was Steve Jobs, actually. And I thought it was a pretty funny clip. As for how it was, I mean, I thought Anthony Michael Hall did a fantastic Bill Gates. I mean, if you think of, well, who could play Bill Gates in a biopic? It would be the first person on your list. Anthony Michael Hall would be on the top of the list. And in fact, I think that he ended up getting the series The Dead Zone, the Stephen King series for television. I think it was on the USA Network or something, based upon the guys who were working on the Dead Zone series watched Pirates of Silicon Valley, and they're like, we want Hall to play the main character, and that's what happened, because after Pirates of Silicon Valley came out, Anthony Michael Hall ended up on the Dead Zone series. By that point, Noah Wyle had already made his name for himself on ER. He was still doing ER, so that of course continued on for him, and I've seen him in ER. That would continue on for many more years after that. So, props there, of course, Wiley. John DiMaggio, of course, continued to do voiceover work. He's Bender on Futurama. He's Marcus Phoenix in the Gears of War series. Yeah. So what is this video about? I mentioned before that this movie was produced by TNT. That's the Turner Library. TNT means Turner. Who owns the Turner Library right now? Warner Brothers does. Who owns Warner Brothers? AT&T does. So, a lot of people don't admit this, but right now AT&T owns pretty much not just Warner Brothers, but also companies like TNT, TBS, Cartoon Network, and they also have their hands, or at least some investments in a lot of these other things. And a lot of maybe smaller investments in companies like Hanna-Barbera and stuff like that. They have, deals and stuff. I think Warner Brothers owns this movie. I don't think the rights were ever in dispute about the film itself. TNT had the distribution for it. Warner Brothers owns TNT, which means it should go on HBO Max. It's not anywhere else. Put it on HBO Max. If anybody who runs HBO Max is watching this, and I seriously doubt they are. I know that Release the Snyder Cut is a hashtag, and it worked. I want to start a new hashtag. Bring back the Pirates. Or maybe we can just, abbreviate it, Pirates of Silicon Valley, POSV. Bring back the POSV. I don't know. I'll take your recommendations for what we should call this campaign. But my name is Maniac, and I want to start a campaign to bring Pirates of the Silicon Valley to streaming. And I'd like to see it on HBO Max. I figured that might be the easiest place to put it.